Hello and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to show you a really quick trick in Illustrator and how to do banners and curve your type onto the banners. One of the things that you're going to want to do is actually have the banner. And you can create these banners yourself by hand, but you can also access the banners through Illustrator, in which Illustrator has some stock banners that you can use. You can access these banners through the brush palette. So if I go to Window and open up my brushes, if I click the Option key, I can open the brush library, and this is all the different things that we can access to. And this trick will work for if I want to put type in an arrow or something like that. But there is a limitation to it, and I'll show you what that is in a second. But in this particular case, we look for decorative banners. And then when I click on that, then decorative banners show up. Now, some of them are already arched, or they have a wave to them, or curls to them, and stuff like that. But to do this trick that I'm going to show you, you're going to want to use something that's straight. You see how straight this one is. Well, I'll click on this banner here, or actually since I've got an orange one in there, let's click on this banner right here. And if I just click and drag it, you see how it gives me that little plus sign? When I let it go, there's my banner. And you can see it's already points. So it's a graphic that I can now scale to whatever I want it to be. Now on some of these, and we'll use this orange one as an example, since it's a graphic, you may want to go in there and adjust it a little bit further so it looks a little more natural. Notice that the shadows in here are just set to a flat gray. And that kind of flattens it out and makes it look more like a graphic, but it doesn't look too real. Whereas I took the banner and I actually created a custom color, just kind of eyeballing it off of the orange that I had, and made it look like a more natural shadow. So it looks like a more natural looking banner. The point being is that feel free to manipulate the artwork a little bit further in color-wise and value, and not just rely simply on what the software dictates. As I've always said in my classes, the graphic designer is the one that's thinking and not just using effects to show that they're not creatively thinking. The next step is you're going to just type a word, any kind of word that you want on a line of text, and then position it wherever you want on the banner. So as you can see here, I have a separate line of text, and it's on top of my banner. We're going to ungroup this guy for a second so you can see. But I have a separate line of text, and I have my banner grouped together. So now we're ready to do the trick. And there's two things you have to do once you have all your pieces together. Number one, remember, it has to be a straight banner. Number two, the banner itself has to be grouped together. If your banner is ungrouped, meaning it's all individual pieces, then I can go to Object and Group. It's grayed out for me because I've already grouped this object. And the second to last step will be typing your text onto its own line and then positioning it where you want above the banner. The final step is to use your direct select tool, the black arrow. You can click and drag and select everything so it's got your banner selected and your text selected. This is the most important part. You go to Object and group them all so that it's all now one piece. Once it's all one piece, you can go to Effects and Warp. We'll select Arc because it's at the first, but you can see that it then bends your banner and your text with it. I'll show you in a second why it's important that they're all grouped together, and it'll also help you troubleshoot if you run into this problem. You're going to want to make sure the preview button is open so that you can see the effect that it does. Then you can adjust the bend however you want it to be. You can also use a variety of other types of effects. But the real key part of this is that you have to make sure that both the ribbon and the text are grouped together before you do your arc effects. This is what happens when you don't group them together. I have text on a line by itself, and I have grouped together my ribbon. When I go to the effect features of warp, notice how the text is at a different arch than the banner itself. Now you might think, oh, well, I'll just move it up. Let's click OK so you can see what happens. When you start to move it up, it's at a clearly different arc and it doesn't look correct. It's because the warp feature that you're using, and it works for all of these guys, is if it's not grouped together, it's going to warp all of these parts individually, the text and the ribbon. When they're grouped together, as we'll do with these guys, object, group, effect, warp. When they're grouped together, it puts them all on the same line. It'll also work with very creative fonts, so don't feel that you have to limit yourself to just kind of standard looking fonts. You can use creative fonts as well, just as long as you have them grouped together first. As long as they're grouped together first, then they'll both warp at the same settings, making the ribbon and the text look like they align with one another. Now let me show you one last step. So everything's grouped together. I'm going to go to my effects. I'm going to apply the arc effect. And you might be able to see on your screen that when I float my mouse over it, you can see that the text and the ribbon still have this kind of phantom look of what they originally looked like. That's because a warp effect has occurred on there. To get rid of this, which you're going to want to do, first we'll select everything by clicking on it. I'm just going to ungroup it. And if I ungroup it, you'll see that it's going to delete the warp effect. And that's not what I want to do. So let's reapply the warp. Group, apply arc. To get rid of this phantom effect, all you have to do is go to Object, Expand Appearance. Now, when you expand appearance, it's going to turn your text to outlines. So if you're afraid that you're going to forget what font you used, make sure you make a copy and paste it onto your pasteboard to the side so that you'll always know what font that you used. To repeat, when everything is grouped together, Object, Group, Warp, Flag. We'll adjust it a little bit so it's a nice ribbon. OK. And then I'll go to Object, Expand Appearance. I can manipulate this even further if I want. So I'll select this and I'll ungroup it. So now my ribbon is one item and my text is another. So that'll allow me to change the color of this if I need to. So let's just select this. We'll make it a nice gray. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go under my transparencies window transparency. I'm going to set this to multiply. See how it looks like a nice shadow? Then I'm going to go to edit, paste in place, and we'll just go ahead and make this kind of a red. And I'm going to use my arrow keys to move it up 3 clicks and then over 3 clicks. It's creating a little awkward kind of shadow, so we're going to scoot it back 1 and scoot it down 1. There we go. And so now it's given me a nice kind of shadow effect. And then I can use, as I show you in another tutorial, I can use effects of strokes. We'll put a white stroke around this. I'll set it to round. I'll set it to the outside. And so now I can then take it and scooch it up a couple. 1, 2, 1, 2. And so now I can create this effect of a stroke. And I can also collect the shadow if I want and scooch it down a little bit. And so now I can start getting a more dimensional effect and still manipulate color. And so this is how you can do banners and match your text to banners quickly in Illustrator.